Okay, bore da pawb. Good morning and welcome to the Governance and Audit Committee, 28th of July 2021. Just to make you all aware, today's meeting is being recorded. And I also welcome any members of the public and press to today's meeting. I don't believe we have any, but if any are just joining now, can I kindly ask you to observe the meeting only and not speak or participate? Can I please remind everyone to switch mobile phones to silent for the duration of the meeting? Just done. And in addition, can I refer you to the protocols for remote meetings which have been previously circulated? Namely, microphones please being switched to mute unless you're speaking. Should you wish to ask a question or make a comment, can you please indicate either via the chat function or by raising your electronic hand via Teams? I will assume that you've all read the paperwork before us today prior to the meeting. And please, will you only use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak as an alternative to the electronic hand function or to raise any technical issues. When asking a question, please, if possible, can you refer to the page number? So the first item on the agenda, item E and item 1, is after the welcome, a roll call of members and officers. So I'm Councillor Del Morgan, Chair, and I'm clearly present. So I'll now call on the Democratic Services Officer, Tammy, to take the roll call.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you. Good morning, all. I will start with councillors. So we know you're present, Chair. Then we go to the Vice Chair, Councillor Lynette Purcell.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Helen Kerry-Clark, we've had apologies from, Chair.
Okay.
Oliver Davis.
Present, Tammy.
You. Sharon Freegard.
Present, Tammy.
You. John Miller.
Present, Tammy.
Thank you. Rydian Mason.
Presennol, present, Tammy.
You. Suzanne Renkes.
Present.
Thank you. Anthony Richards. No? Okay. Rachel Taylor.
Present, Tammy.
Thank you. Rob Wundt.
Present.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Arwyn Woolcock.
Yes, present, Chair.
Thank you. We also have invited voting co-opted member Joanna Jenkins, but I don't think Joanna's present. So we move on to officers. We have Howell Jenkins.
Present.
Thank you. Anne-Marie O'Donnell.
Present, Tammy.
Thank you. Diane Mulligan.
Present, Tammy.
Thank you. Gillian Gillay.
Present.
Thank you. And myself, Tammy Davis, the Democratic Services Officer. Have I left anybody out of that roll call? No, there we are, Chair, that's complete.
Diolch yn fawr. I know that Hugh Jones is on leave, so that completes the list. If Tammy, if you can possibly try and check while we're speaking then on the first item, whether Joe Jenkins is trying to get in. There might be technicalities with her connection. Thanks. Right. Chair's announcements, there are none today. So item 3, declarations of interest. If any members could please indicate whether you have any declarations in relation to the items we have on today's agenda. Dim byd? No, diolch yn fawr. Thanks. So item 4, this is the Audit Wheels Audit of Accounts 2020-21. And on my papers, these are from pages 3 through to 18. So if I could ask Gillian Gillette, please, to provide an update on this, which will be for noting. Gillian?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. This is our Audit of Accounts report that we provide to you every year, which summarises the main findings from our audit of your 2021 financial statements. We note in paragraph 6 of the report that at the time we drafted this report, our work on the review of pension fund assets and liabilities was outstanding. This is now complete. We've received the assurances required from the auditors of the City and County of Swansea Pension Fund, and we've completed our work. But as is usual, there are some matters that we need to report to you before you approve the financial statements. Just like to say that we've continued to work remotely with the finance team throughout the accounts process, and I'd just like to express our thanks to them for the help and support they've provided us with giving us all the audit evidence that we've needed. I know it's been quite challenging, but it's gone relatively smoothly, so I'd like to express my thanks to Howell, Diane and the team. On to the good news then. The AGW intends to issue an unqualified opinion on the financial statements. The proposed audit report is set out in Appendix 2 on page 12 of your pack. In terms of significant issues arising from the audit that we need to bring to your attention, there's one uncorrected misstatement relating to the insurance provision. The assessment of outstanding liabilities is made by your insurance advisors, and that includes a buffer requirement of 862,000, which have been included in the provision rather than the insurance reserve. The impact of this unadjusted misstatement is that reported net expenditure and the general fund reserve are overstated and earmark reserves understated. Due to the size of this, and it's not material, it's reported as an unadjusted misstatement rather than requiring you to amend the accounts. There are a few other misstatements in the accounts, but they've all been corrected and they didn't have any impact on the net position. These are summarised in Appendix 3 on page 17. Then on Appendix 1 on page 9, that sets out the letter of representation we require from you before the AGW can issue his opinion. And that's all I have to say. If anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Gillian. Croeso, Councillor Richards. We have that letter mentioned now coming up in the next item, but it's there for noting for the time being. So, members, are there any questions to Gillian or to the team in relation to Audit Wheels audit of accounts, the report between pages 3 and 18? Have we got any questions on that? I have a hand up, but there's no name against it. Sorry. It's the Vice Chair. Sorry. Carry on, Lynette.
Okay, thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, there was just one thing. First of all, and I'm sure you were going to do this anyway, but on behalf of the committee, I'd really like to congratulate the staff. The comment, "We are extremely grateful to the professionalism of the team," is really good news to hear that. So on behalf of the committee, that's fantastic. Yeah, there was one question, and it's just my ignorance of accounting procedures, although I am learning as a member of this committee. When it talks about the level of materiality being 5.3 million, could you just explain what that means? I think I understand, but I think, just in case any member of the public is observing this, does it mean that they can deviate in the total to +5 or -5 million? What does it mean? In layman's terms, please.
Materiality is an accounting concept, as you're probably aware, in terms of what would interest the user of the accounts. We can't audit to the penny. We have to set a limit of what we consider to be a material amount. It's generally set in relation to a percentage of our expenditure, and for Neath Talbot, that's 5.3 million. So if we identify an error that's more than 5.3 million, we'd ask you to correct it, and if you didn't correct it, we'd then qualify your accounts. If it's less than 5.3 million, we ask you to consider correcting it, like this 862 in the insurance advisors. But if you don't, the accounts are still materially correct. Right. But it's just noted.
Thank you very much for that. I understand that now. Thank you.
Okay, Lynette. Any other questions? No, if not, well, we'll go on to the next item. And as we are between the two items, then the Audit Wheels item and the statement of accounts, which is presented from ourselves, our own officers. Can I now thank both teams for their work in getting us to where we are, and it's very pleasing to read where we are. But I want to thank you all especially for the fact that it's been carried out during this very difficult year or so behind us. And I know that there are comments in both reports noting the difficulties of the pandemic, but can I please, myself as Chair of Governance and Audit, say thank you to all officers concerned. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi gyd. Thank you. So if we can move on then to the item 5.
Sorry, Chair, just before we move on, my apologies for interrupting.
Okay, tell me, yeah.
sorry, could we confirm whether the Audit Wheels audit of accounts 2021 is just for noting?
Yes, that item is for noting. This
That's
next item now is for decision, and if I can introduce it to say to members, then if you've got the papers, they'll begin on page 19 right through to 176 with all the appendices and so on. But there are recommendations listed on page 22, and there are 4 bullet points there, which we will come back to at the end of this item. All right, so Tammy, we'll come back to it at the end. So colleagues, can I now take the item then, which starts, as I say, on page 19. I'll ask, please, if Howell Jenkins would like to start us off, and then members, as usual, if you've got questions, I'm sure you'll come in with hands. Howell, diolch yn fawr ti.
Thank you, Chair. And as members can see, this is the Council's response now to the report that Gillian has just introduced to you from the Audit Wales perspective. Yes, there's been a substantial amount of work done in order to comply with the statutory requirements of developing and preparing the Statement of Accounts. It's quite a technical document, and that's shown in the appendix here. But it is excellent news to see that there hasn't been anything significant found as part of the audit. There will always be areas that auditors will highlight that we need to look at. That is clearly the case when we are talking about a budget that is over 300 million net, gross, including our capital budget, over 600 million pounds. So it's critical that this work is done as accurately as possible, but as highlighted. So there's some on the bottom of page 20 there in adjusted misstatements. I don't like the words misstatements, but it is a technical accounting words that all auditors are required to report in terms of governance issues. You'll see there that there have been a few items that have been corrected in the accounts. Happy to answer questions around them, but there was one item that wasn't adjusted, and that was the one that Gillian highlighted earlier, where we had included 862,000 in the provision as opposed to in the reserves balance for insurance elements. As she mentioned, our general reserves would have reduced by 862, and our specific reserves would have increased by 862 on the back end of that one. But as this information only came to light about 3 or 4 days before we finalised and submitted these reports for committee, and it would have impacted on at least 14 items in the Statement of Accounts, which would have had to be verified by the auditors. I felt it was appropriate on this occasion not to ask the accountants and the auditors to go through that and do the correction in the current financial year. So it will be corrected, but it'll be corrected in the current financial year as opposed to in last year. So what we will be doing is including it in the next budget monitoring report, which is probably scheduled for Cabinet to consider in September. And then including that in that piece of work, Chair. So those are the main areas there. I think there's, I must say that in previous years, the auditors have highlighted that we needed to improve some of our capital accounting work. I'd like to pay tribute to Gillian, Kate, and my accountant Louise, who has worked tirelessly to try and ensure that we haven't got any commentary around capital in this year's report. We've also had some strong support from colleagues in the Environment Directorate to ensure that the valuations for the assets that the Council owns are also included appropriately within the Statement of Accounts, and all of that has resulted in a positive outcome with an unqualified proposal set out by the auditors in terms of the accounts, but happy to take any questions in relation to the documents in front of you today.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Hywel. Thank you. Members, I have had indication from the Vice Chair of a couple of questions. Lynette, would you ask yours first? Thank you.
Thank you. The first one is on page 67, when it talks about the average number of annual leave days not taken has increased from 2.35 to 8.32 days. I wondered if that was normal, and I just wondered if this was per officer, and what the thinking was behind that. I'll ask my other question as well, and then you can look at both of them. On page 78, talking about Celtic Leisure, it says there was a 44,000 outstanding balance owed by Celtic Leisure on the 31st of March 2021. And I just wondered how this debt had arisen, and any explanation as that would be, I'd be very appreciative. Shall I ask the third one as well? Yeah, I can repeat them if necessary. Page 82, on the second bullet point, right, it talks about the discretionary post-retirement benefits being unfunded. The liabilities are recognised when awards are due, but there's no investment assets built up to meet these pensions liabilities. Cash has to be generated to meet the actual pension payments as they eventually fall due. Now, I know that we had pages and pages of this to read, but that did cause me a little bit of perplexity, you know, as to why we're just generating the cash when it falls due. I mean, I'm probably worrying about nothing, but those are the three things that struck me when I was reading this. Thanks.
Thanks, Lynette. Hywel?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Purcell. In terms of the first question, it's the increase in annual leave not taken. As you know, council officers have their leave commencing the month after their birthday, and the 12 months starts. So if your birthday is in October, then your year starts on the 1st of November and goes through to the 31st of October following year. But all of these assessments have to be undertaken to comply with statutory accounting of how much leave has not been taken as at 31st of March each year. And during COVID, some officers have not taken the leave in the same months as they would normally undertake. So there is usually a survey undertaken of officers, non-school staff, who to try and assess what their average untaken leave is as at 31st of March each year. This year, because COVID has impacted, we were asked to undertake some additional survey work with staff because we knew that some of them hadn't taken leave, and that has temporarily, in my view, increased the amount of leave they hadn't taken. And I would expect it to reduce. If COVID disappears and more people have been able to take their leave in the current year, then the annual leave number of days per officer, and it is per officer, will reduce as at next year. But all of that goes through the accounts and has increased the average amount of untaken leave, but it hasn't really got an impact on the bottom line of the accounts, but we have to statutorily process it through the books.
Thank you very much for that.
In terms of your second question then, around Celtic Leisure, on page 78 of the report, yes, it says that there's 44,000 outstanding. Well, just to inform members that most of that 44,000 is for building maintenance work that our council does on their buildings, on the buildings that they manage. We raised invoices in March to the tune of £30,000. which of course has got 30 days to pay. So they have paid it in the current year, not on 31st of March, and there was about 14,000 from previous months that they hadn't paid. So it's not material in terms of the issues, but it's a timing in terms of we've done work, we've raised invoices, and the payment is due technically in the current year. And then the more complicated question is around the issue was around pensions. On page 82, as you said, it talks about post-retirement benefits, unfunded liabilities, etc. This, if I can just try and explain what it is. If people go under voluntary retirement, then what the pension fund has said is that they provide for people to be retiring at the normal pension age. So in most instances now it's 65, 66, 67, etc. So if there are officers of the council who are part of the pension scheme who then want to go early, then there is a cost attached to drawing down that money, their pension early. The pension scheme automatically has built in the funding from normal pension age, but not for early. So there is an actuarial assessment done for everybody who wishes to go early and draws down their pension early. And this is a statutory calculation that is assessed by the pensions regulator. And we have to pay that over to the Swansea pension scheme if we allow anybody to go early. In the report, it talks about in note 27 of the papers, it talks about £901,000 worth of additional payments that the council has made. I'm going to just check where note 27 is. That's on page. No, it's not note 27. On page 73, bottom of page 73, it's got total cost of exit packages that the council has made of £901,000 in the last column. Of that, £351,000 is the cost of the early access to pension costs, which we have paid over to Swansea, and the rest of it is the redundancy element that, of course, falls on us as employers as well. So that means that the pension fund then has got the sufficient and the appropriate amounts of money to pay for those pensioners who have retired throughout their lifetime then as pensioners. So it's made up of two elements. One, which is what we pay generally in our employer's contribution, but if we allow any officers to retire early, then we have to pay this additional sum into the pension scheme to compensate. So hopefully that clarifies that position as well, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed for that.
Diolch yn fawr, Hywel, thank you. I'm looking at my electronic list of members. I don't see any hands up. Colleagues, are there any further points or questions you wish to raise on this report? Right, if not, can we please all go to page 22, where there's this series of recommendations for us. And you can see it has 4 bullet points. First of all, well, I will take them one by one, and if any members wish to query or disagree, then please show your electronic hand or shout and scream, but otherwise I'll take them as read. So the first one is that members approve the letter of representation included as addendum 1. We heard it earlier with Gillian Gillett as well. You all happy with that? Are we all approving that? I'm seeing nods and approval. Diolch yn fawr. Right, Eileen, the second one. Members approve the final 2022 to 2020, sorry, 2020 to 2021 statement of accounts as included in addendum 2. I don't like reading out the word slash, but members approve the final 2020/21, there we are, statement of accounts as included in addendum 2. You all happy with that? All approved, diolch. Thirdly, that members approve the annual governance statement included in addendum 3. You all happy to approve that? Diolch. And lastly, that I be authorised to provide the electronic signature, as we do these days, for the letter of representation and the statement of accounts. Are you all happy, members, that I do that as chair? Diolch yn fawr iawn, thank you. So those are the tasks for the meeting then, and that concludes item 5. Item 6, urgent items. No, there aren't any urgent items. So that brings us to the end of the meeting. Short and sweet. Diolch yn fawr iawn. So I will thank everyone for their attendance, members, colleagues, officers alike. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi. I'll now call this meeting to a close. To have a good day and look after yourselves. Diolch bawb.